Episode 5 plants the question like a landmine. Robert House sits there, calm on the surface, but you can tell he's rattled underneath. The numbers don't add up. His models can't see the hand that's really steering the wheel. So he says it out loud. There's another player at the table. Not Vault-Tec, not House, not China. Something else. Something that can move pieces without ever showing its face. And episode 6, the other player, finally stops teasing and just says it. The Enclave. If you've been watching this season feeling like every faction is loud and messy and obvious, Brotherhood marching around like they own gravity, NCR and Legion still stuck in their Forever War cosplay, Vault-Tec executives treating the apocalypse like a brand refresh, then the Enclave reveal hits different. Because it explains why the world feels like it was destroyed by people who weren't even in the room. It explains why Barb, for all her sins, never quite feels like the final boss. And it explains why Hank McLean, who thinks he's building peace, is really just reinventing a cage with better lighting. And hey, if you're into spoiler-heavy Fallout deep dives that make the chaos easier to follow, stick around and make sure you're subscribed for the last stretch of this season, because the show just flipped the board over and we're finally seeing who's been standing behind it. The episode opens in the past, and it's almost funny in the darkest way because the end of the world looks like corporate meetings that should have been emails. Barb sits through pitch after pitch where people talk about nuclear fire like they're designing a billboard. Then it gets worse. They talk about the Vault water systems like they're discussing office printers, 30% fail rate, and they'll know which ones will fail before they install them, meaning someone is literally deciding which Vault gets to die of thirst ahead of time. That matters because it reframes everything happening in the present Vault storyline. The water crisis in Vault 33 doesn't feel random anymore. It starts to feel like an old choice coming due, like a curse that was always scheduled to activate. And it also tells you something simple about how Vault-Tec thinks. Human lives are variables. Loss is acceptable. Suffering is baked into the plan. Then House shows up, well, the public-facing version of him, and he brings a gift from Robco, the automated man. The show plays it like a little sci-fi toy at first, but episode 6 makes it clear this thing is the blueprint for everything Hank is doing now. Control chips, behavior changes, people turned into calm little workers who smile on command. House says the trade is basically this. Vault-Tec gets the chip tech, and House gets access to cold fusion for his private New Vegas project. Here's the key detail, though. Nobody in that scene actually feels like the person holding power. Barb looks uneasy. Hank is taking notes like a guy desperate to matter. Even House feels like a messenger, not a king. It's like watching chess pieces talk themselves into believing they're players. And then the episode gives you the elevator scene, the one that makes the title click. Barb steps into the lift, and there's Wilzig. Yes, that Wilzig. The guy you thought was done in Season 1. Only now he's standing there in the past, like he's always been part of this machine. He tells her, flat out, she's replaceable. If she forgets her place, she dies. And her family dies. That's the moment episode 6 stops letting you blame Barb as the single monster. Because this isn't just corporate evil, this is coercion. Barb isn't pitching genocide because she's bored. She's being boxed in by something bigger than Vault-Tec, something that can threaten her life and do it casually, like it's HR policy. And then Wilzig delivers the message that connects straight back to Season 1's infamous boardroom line. Barb has to tell the gathered corporate leaders that the only way to guarantee results is by dropping the bombs themselves. Except now we know that line didn't begin as Barb's brilliant idea. It was handed to her like a script. So when we ask, who's the other player? Episode 6 answers, the Enclave is the hidden hand that pushed the table toward the apocalypse. Okay, pause for a second. I need you guys to see the scale of this production. We talk a lot about how fantasy lately feels, I don't know, cynical or ironic. But look at this. This is the Pendragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin. If you're tired of shows deconstructing heroes, this is the answer. It's a return to classic epic storytelling where myth and prophecy actually carry weight. And just to be clear, this isn't another retelling of King Arthur. This is the origin of the world that made Arthur possible. It's set before Camelot, before the crown, focusing on Merlin not as a wizard trope, but as a prophetic historical figure navigating the collapse of the old world and the birth of a new one. It's gritty, it's historical, and it honestly looks incredible. This was 3 years in the making, shot across multiple international locations, and you can feel that authenticity in every frame. It's based on the Stephen R. Lawhead novels, so the lore is deep. It's about faith, sacrifice, and the birth of a civilization. We've been waiting for a high-budget fantasy that takes itself seriously, and it is finally here. The Pendragon Cycle is available now to stream on Daily Wire Plus. Hit the link in the description to start watching episodes 1 and 2. Do not miss this. Now, if you're coming at this just from the show, the Enclave basically reads like the world's nastiest magic trick. A group that hides behind flags and patriot language while doing the kind of stuff that makes Vault-Tec look like amateurs with clipboards. In the wider Fallout lore, the Enclave presents itself as the continuation of the U.S. government after the Great War, continuity of government, deep state survivors, the real America. But it's also tied to brutal power grabs and a worldview where anyone outside their circle is disposable. And that's why they're the perfect other player. Because Vault-Tec is loud. Robco is loud. The Brotherhood is loud. The Enclave doesn't need to be loud. They just need to nudge things, apply pressure, and let everyone else do the dirty work while thinking it was their own idea. This also makes Cooper and Barb's flashback argument hit harder. Cooper looks at Barb like she's the devil in a dress, and yeah, she's involved in some horrifying stuff. But episode 6 forces you to sit with an uglier truth. Barb is terrified too. She keeps coming back to one thing. Janie, if she doesn't play her part, her daughter dies. And the show doesn't excuse her, but it does make her human in the worst way. Because lots of people can justify a terrible choice when you hold their child over a cliff. That's the emotional trick of the other player. It doesn't suddenly make Barb good. It just makes her smaller than Cooper believed. She isn't the storm. She's someone trying not to drown inside it. And while all that is happening in the past, the present storyline is doing its own reveal through pure body horror and heartbreak. Cooper, the ghoul, is still impaled. He's desperate for his vials, and he's slipping. You can hear it in the way he repeats his own name like he's trying to anchor himself to reality. Cooper Howard. And then the one name that still makes him sound like a dad instead of a monster, Janie. It's easy to watch the ghoul as a cool gunslinger and forget what the show keeps whispering. Ghouls don't just become evil. They break. They fade. They lose themselves. And Cooper, for the first time in a while, looks like he's losing the fight. Then the super mutant arrives. This is one of those moments where Fallout goes full myth mode, like a monster out of church painting stepping into the story. A massive figure drags Cooper to a church filled with gore bags, hangs him up like a grim display, and then heals him by stuffing uranium into the wound like it's medicine. And the reveal lands with a grin if you know the franchise. The super mutant is played by Ron Perlman, the voice tied to Fallout's most famous line. And here's the real point of that scene. The mutant names the Enclave as the enemy. He calls their kind abominations, and he talks like someone who's been used and discarded. He tells Cooper a war is coming and that they need him healthy for it. He talks about revenge, about the people who set all of this in motion. And the ghoul, stubborn, angry, half feral, still refuses. He says he works alone. He survived this long because he doesn't need anybody. But that's the irony. Episode 6 ends on, Cooper can say alone all he wants. The wasteland is about to force him into a party. Because Dogmeat leads Maximus and Thaddeus right to him. That little reunion at the end, Maximus saying fuck, Cooper answering fuck, Thaddeus waving like it's a play date, works as comedy, sure. But it also matters structurally. Cooper just got told he'll need allies for what's coming, and 2 of them show up immediately, whether he wants them or not. Now, let's talk about Lucy and Hank, because this is where the episode gets quietly terrifying. Lucy wakes up in a replica of home built inside Vault-Tec offices. It's like Hank is trying to wrap her in nostalgia the way a snake wraps around prey. Soft, familiar, comforting, and completely controlling. Outside the room, she sees legionaries, except they're polite, friendly, the kind of nice that feels wrong on them. Then she notices the device in their necks, and suddenly everything clicks. Hank didn't just run to Vegas. He didn't just hide. He built a factory for obedience. Lucy walks through an office full of synchronized workers making more control devices. People move like they've been edited into the same rhythm. They smile the same. They speak the same. It feels like a cult without the chanting. And then she finds Hank in a simulation room in a fake vault home acting like they're doing book club. He brings up All Quiet on the Western Front and talks about soldiers dying for nothing, people fighting over inches of land. Then he makes the comparison to the surface. Everyone fighting over petty scraps, over bottle caps, over uniforms. He basically delivers the Fallout theme right into Lucy's face. War never changes, except he uses it to justify a new kind of war. War against free will. Lucy tries to arrest him. Knife to his neck. Real justice, real anger. Hank surrenders, even cuffs himself, and for a second you might believe he's finally broken. But Hank isn't surrendering because he's guilty. He's surrendering because he thinks he's about to win. Because Lucy's weakness has always been compassion. She sees trapped people and she wants to free them. Hank knows that. So he walks her through his peace project like it's a museum tour. He introduces former murderers, former cannibals, former enemies from rival factions, and now they're pencil sharpeners and trail mix makers and happy little co-workers. Lucy tells them they're free to go, and they basically say, "No thanks, we like it here." That's a brutal detail because it's not just mind control is evil. It's the show saying some people will choose the cage if the cage feels safe. Then the snake oil salesman shows up with 2 people who haven't been fixed yet. One from the NCR, one from Caesar's Legion. Lucy tries to do the moral thing. Let them go as is, no chip activation, no forced personality rewrite. And for about 10 seconds, it looks like she's right. Then the Legion soldier attacks. It gets ugly fast. He grabs a stapler and starts stapling the NCR guy's head. Lucy stabs him with a pencil, but it doesn't stop him. And Hank's standing there like a teacher waiting for his student to admit the answer on the board. See? This is why I do what I do. So Lucy pushes the button. The devices activate. The violence shuts off like a light. The 2 enemies become instant friends, and Hank smiles like he just proved peace is possible if you're willing to remove the part of people that chooses. That's the real horror of episode 6. Not that Hank is evil in a mustache-twirling way, it's that his system works. And that circles right back to the Enclave reveal, because now you can see the pattern. Control isn't a side plot, it's the theme. Vault-Tec experiments with humans. The Enclave operates above it all. Hank is building a mini version of the same philosophy. People are a problem, so we'll solve people. Even the Vault storylines echo it. Reg support group grows into a weird little movement, partly because people are scared, and partly because snacks taste better than truth. Overseer Betty comes in and shuts it down, citing the water shortage, and the whole thing becomes a power struggle. Reg points out the ugly secret nobody wants to say. The Vault is built on favoritism, on chosen bloodlines, on who your parents were. When he calls out that Betty is from Vault 31, you can feel the room shift, because that's the kind of truth that spreads. And over in Vault 32, Chet finding out he's getting married tomorrow, because a poster says so, is funny for a second. Then it gets creepy. Because it suggests Steph isn't asking. She's arranging. She's controlling the narrative around her like it's an election she can rig with flyers and smiles. Now, here's where all of this lands for the other player question. Episode 6 doesn't just introduce the Enclave as a name drop. It uses them to reframe the whole pre-war timeline. If Wilzig is delivering threats and instructions, then the Enclave isn't just something that survived the apocalypse. It's something that shaped it. It's the reason Barb is terrified. It's the reason Drop the Bombs ourselves start sounding less like Vault-Tec arrogance and more like a plan forced into motion by an even higher tier of power. And if you know the wider Fallout world, the Enclave connection gets even nastier because they're closely tied to the Forced Evolutionary Virus, the FEV, the thing that creates super mutants and a lot of the mutated nightmares across the franchise. In lore, FEV is a pre-war bioweapon project tied to West Tech, designed to evolve organisms by rewriting their DNA. So when Episode 6 drops a super mutant into the story and has him point straight at the Enclave, it's not random fan service. It's the show drawing a line from pre-war secrets to post-war monsters. It's telling you that thing you're scared of, somebody built it on purpose, and suddenly the other player isn't just one villain. It's a whole idea. The world didn't end because humans are chaotic. It ended because a small group of powerful people decided chaos was useful. That's also why Hank feels like a pawn in Episode 6, even when he's acting like the mastermind of his own little kingdom. In the past, he's literally a note-taker. He's the guy in the corner watching Barb and House talk. And then later we find out the cold fusion was hidden inside him the whole time, like he was a walking safe deposit box. Not because he was important, but because he was invisible. That's such a Vault-Tec move, and such an Enclave move too. Real power doesn't always sit at the head of the table. Sometimes it hides inside the guy holding the clipboard. So when Cooper drugs Hank in the past, opens the case and finds the injector, instead of the cold fusion itself, it's a perfect little gut punch. Cooper thought he was finally grabbing the magic prize. Instead, he's holding the tool that moves the prize. And Barb walks in, takes it, and uses it like she's already accepted she's trapped inside this game. By the end of Episode 6, the season's endgame starts to feel clearer. Lucy has Hank in handcuffs, but Hank still has the philosophy that can infect her. Control can look like kindness. Cooper has been rescued by a super mutant who basically says, pick a side, because war is coming. Maximus and Thaddeus are back in the mix, carrying their own mess and chasing the idea that cold fusion should go to someone good, even though this world keeps proving good is fragile. And above all of them, the Enclave hangs there like a shadow that finally stepped into the light. The other player isn't a cowboy, it isn't a Vault-Tec exec, it's the group that can threaten Barb in an elevator and make it sound like casual office talk. It's the group that can turn science into a weapon, then act shocked when the world becomes a graveyard. Episode 6 answers the question, but it also makes the question bigger. Because if the Enclave was the hand behind the hand, then what is the real goal? Dropping the bombs isn't just destruction, it's a reset button. It wipes the board so the right people can rebuild in their image. Vault-Tec runs experiments in underground boxes. Hank is trying to mass-produce obedience. The Enclave is lurking behind it all, with a history of treating anyone outside their ranks as disposable. So yeah, the other player finally tells you who's been moving pieces. But the scarier part is what it implies. The game was never fair. It was never even really a game. It was a trap disguised as a plan, and everyone we've been watching, Barb, House, Hank, Cooper, Lucy, has been stuck inside it, trying to make the best choices they can while the walls keep closing in. And if the super mutant is right, and war is coming, then this is the moment where Fallout stops being, who can you trust? And becomes what happens when the hidden government finally decides it's time to take the world back. And that's the part that should chill you the most. Because Episode 6 doesn't just reveal a new villain, it reveals the real hierarchy. Vault-Tec isn't the top of the food chain. House isn't either. Hank is just a pawn who finally got promoted to useful. And Cooper just realized the people who ruined his life weren't just monsters. They were managers with a bigger boss. If the Enclave is finally stepping out of the shadows, then the war we've been watching is about to become something else entirely. Because now the hidden hand is ready to close into a fist. If you want the next breakdown the moment it drops, hit subscribe right now. Because Fallout just flipped the board and the endgame is finally here.